The soft click of my apartment door shutting behind me should have been a comfort. Instead, it echoed like a warning bell. I had left work early, something I rarely did, because the migraine behind my eyes had grown into a steady drumbeat. All I wanted was silence, maybe a hot bath and the smell of lavender from the candle on my nightstand. But the living room wasn't silent. From the hallway, I heard the scrape of drawers opening and the rustle of cardboard boxes. My heels froze against the polished wood floor. A sick swirl of disbelief tightened in my stomach. I turned the corner, and there they were, my parents. My mother's honey-blonde bob framed a face set in determined lines as she folded my clothes into a box. My father, in his usual crisp button-down, was taping another shut. "Mom? Dad? What on earth?" My mother looked up, startled only for a heartbeat before forcing a gentle smile. "Sweetheart, you're home early. We thought we'd help you move into something a little more manageable." Manageable? The word lodged like a stone in my throat. Dad didn't meet my eyes. A studio opened up near downtown. Smaller. Easier for someone in your situation. My situation. The phrase burned. They thought they knew my life, what I could afford, what I deserved. And in their minds, it added up to a cramped studio apartment and a future they could pack neatly into cardboard. My migraine vanished under the heat of something sharper. Fury. I was 21 the night everything cracked open. My parents' living room smelled faintly of lemon polish, and the coffee my mom always brewed too strong. I'd come home late from my shift at the campus bookstore, cheeks pink from the autumn wind, when I overheard my father's voice, low, stern, the kind he saved for disappointment. "She's never going to manage on her own. We need to push her towards something smaller before she gets in over her head." I froze at the bottom of the staircase, one hand gripping the banister. Mom sighed. "It's not like she listens when we try to help. Maybe if we downsize her space for her, she'll finally accept reality." It took me a full heartbeat to understand what they meant. My apartment. The lease I'd worked double shifts to afford. They were already planning to move my things into a studio I hadn't chosen, because they thought I couldn't handle my own life. A tremor ran through me, sharp as the first bite of November air. I stepped into the room, heart pounding. "You're packing up my life? Without even asking me?" Dad turned, eyes narrowing like I'd proven his point. "Nora, we're trying to help. That loft is too expensive. You need something manageable." His words were a hammer blow. Too expensive. Too ambitious. Too much. Always too much. I wanted to shout that I'd budgeted every dollar, that the late-night shifts and cracked knuckles from hauling books weren't for nothing. But the lump in my throat swelled until my voice shook. "I can manage my own rent." Mom's expression softened, but her tones stayed firm. "Sweetheart, sometimes we know what's best." "No," I whispered, then louder. "No, you don't." Silence pooled between us, thick and unforgiving. My grandmother's locket rested against my collarbone, its tiny silver heart cool beneath my fingers. She'd given it to me the summer she passed, along with a single piece of advice: don't let anyone shrink the life you're meant to live. That night, I packed only what mattered: sketchbooks, a battered journal, the locket, and left before dawn. My suitcase wheels rattled on the cracked sidewalk like an exclamation point after my decision. I didn't have a full plan, only a promise to myself. I would build a life no one could downsize. I never planned to disappear from my parents' orbit completely, just long enough to breathe. But one quiet autumn morning, as I lugged 2 suitcases up a narrow Brooklyn walk-up, I knew I was starting a life they'd never recognize. The apartment was barely bigger than a generous closet. A single window framed the fire escape like crooked picture wire. The radiator hissed like an impatient cat. I set down my second-hand coffee table, ran a palm over its scarred surface, and whispered, "This is mine." That first year blurred into a collage of survival, bartending double shifts, chasing freelance design gigs, skipping dinners to stretch my tips. Nights stretched like dark elastic. The glow of my laptop burned tiny half-moons into my eyes. I'd sometimes pause to watch the city outside, taxi headlights gliding across wet asphalt, strangers laughing under umbrellas, and remind myself that the loneliness was temporary, a tax for freedom. My first break came from a woman who saw past my tired face and thrift store blazer. Valerie Harper, silver hair twisted into a decisive knot, voice like warm cedar, ran a boutique interior design firm. She'd skimmed my student portfolio and, without hesitation, said, "You've got an eye people can't teach. Come in Monday." Working for Valerie felt like inhaling after years underwater. She treated design as both craft and quiet rebellion, refusing cookie-cutter layouts, hunting for textures that carried stories. I absorbed everything: how she negotiated without flinching, how she sketched concepts in a single, fluid line. Still, the climb was steep. Some clients assumed I was the intern. Others dismissed my ideas until Valerie repeated them. Each time, I forced my voice steady, nails digging into my palm beneath the table. And each time, when the meeting ended, Valerie's approving nod steadied me. One winter, I pitched a daring remodel of a Soho loft, an interplay of exposed brick and soft linen drapes. The client loved it. The project landed on the cover of a niche design magazine, my name in the credits smaller than a postage stamp, but they're all the same. That byline became a key. I picked up private commissions quietly at first, cash jobs I didn't post about. Then came a corporate contract, and the checks stopped bouncing. My bank account grew from survival mode to something like security. I bought a small condo, nothing flashy, but sunlit and mine. I sent my parents occasional texts, "Work's good. Hope you're well." No photos, no bragging. Their replies were brief, polite, and I let the distance be. Valerie eventually offered me a partnership. The night I signed the papers, I sat alone on my balcony, a candle flickering in the chill. I remembered my grandmother's locket, the one I'd clasped that awful day years ago, and pressed it to my lips. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something they couldn't shrink to fit their version of me. The doorbell chimed just as the last notes of a mellow jazz track floated through my loft. I had been expecting them. Mom's text earlier was just a vague, "We need to talk." The kind of message that used to make my stomach knot. Not anymore. I crossed the open living space, the soft click of my heels echoing against the polished oak floor. Sunlight streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting my white marble countertops in honeyed gold. I caught a glimpse of myself in the black glass of the oven, steady eyes, a chin held higher than the girl they once underestimated. When I opened the door, my parents stood there, both wearing that careful blend of concern and awkward guilt I'd come to recognize. Mom clutched her handbag like a shield. Dad's eyes darted from the hallway to the sleek interior behind me. "Hi," I said evenly. "Come in." They stepped inside like they were entering a museum they weren't sure they belonged in. Mom's gaze lingered on the abstract painting above the sectional sofa, a piece I'd bought from a local artist after closing my first major contract. Dad paused at the custom bookshelf where my awards and framed magazine spreads glinted in the afternoon light. "This is quite a place," Dad said, his voice thin. "I'm glad you think so." I folded my arms, letting the silence stretch. The scent of freshly brewed Ethiopian coffee filled the air, warm and rich. Mom's eyes flicked toward the kitchen island, where a crystal carafe gleamed. Finally, Mom cleared her throat. We were worried about you. When we started packing your things that day, we only wanted to help you move. That studio was tiny." I tilted my head. "Yes, that's the word you used." Her cheeks flushed a shade of rose. "We thought you'd struggle, living alone. We didn't think you'd manage rent, much less." "Much less what? Build a business? Lead a team? Buy a penthouse in downtown Chicago?" My voice was calm, but I could feel the pulse of old hurt beneath it. Dad's mouth opened, then closed again. He stepped closer to the wide glass windows and looked out over the skyline, the lake glittering in the distance, the city's heartbeat of traffic below. "I own this building now," I said quietly. "Not just this apartment. The whole building." Mom's head snapped toward me, eyes wide. "You what?" I'm the founder and majority shareholder of a digital marketing firm. We closed our Series C funding last year. Investors lined up. I moved to the built-in cabinet and pulled out the framed Forbes article, the headline clear, "The Quiet Rise of Olivia Bennet, Tech's Unlikely Visionary." I handed it to Mom. Her fingers trembled as she took it. Dad exhaled sharply. "Olivia, you thought I'd fail," I said, not unkindly. "You assumed I needed rescuing before I even began. But I needed you to believe in me, not box me in." Mom blinked hard, her voice barely a whisper. We were scared. We didn't want you to get hurt." I did get hurt. I held their gaze. But I learned. And I built this life, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. Silence settled like snowfall. The city lights flickered on outside, a glittering reflection of the life I had forged. Dad finally turned from the window, his face lined with something deeper than regret, something like awe. "You've built something extraordinary," he said. I softened my stance, a slow breath leaving me. "Yes. And I did it on my own terms." Mom clutched the magazine, her eyes shining. "We didn't know. We were proud of you." I let the words land. For years, I'd craved them. Now they were simply confirmation of what I already knew. "Good," I said, offering a small, steady smile. "Because this," I gestured to the expanse around us, "the life I'd claimed, is just the beginning." I sat a little straighter on the edge of the velvet chair, the one I'd bought on a whim after signing the lease to this loft. The skyline outside glittered in the fading evening, glass towers catching the last smear of gold. For a moment, no one said a word. My mother finally broke the silence. "Lena, we only wanted to make sure you were settled." Her voice wavered, the same voice that once sliced through my teenage dreams like a knife. I met her gaze. "Settled? You were packing my things to help me move into a studio I never asked for." The word studio tasted bitter. "Meanwhile, you never asked where I live or how I'm doing." Dad cleared his throat, eyes fixed on the polished floorboards. "We were worried you might be over your head. City life is expensive. We didn't want you to drown in debt." A dry laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "Debt? I paid cash for this place. And the gallery downstairs? Mine too." Their eyes widened, and for the first time, I felt the quiet thrill of having all the cards. I rose, letting my heels click against the hardwood as I crossed to the window. "Here's the thing," I said softly. "I love you. But if you want a place in my life now, things have to change." Mom's brow furrowed. "Change?" "Yes." I turned back, meeting each of their stunned faces. "No more surprise visits. If you want to see me, call first, like you would with anyone else you respect." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Of course. We should have." "I'm not finished." My voice held steady. "Second, no more talking about how art isn't a real career or hinting that I should come back to Cedar Springs and teach at the high school. This is my life. This is my work. You don't have to understand it, but you will respect it." Mom's eyes glistened. "Lena, we never meant." "You did mean it," I interrupted, gentler now. "But I forgive you. That's the third condition. Forgiveness goes both ways. I'll forgive the way you underestimated me, if you can forgive me for needing distance to grow." For a long beat, the only sound was the low hum of the city. Then Dad exhaled, shoulders sinking. "We can do that," he said, voice gravelly. Mom stepped closer, hesitant. I can call first. And I'll stop saying those things." I didn't realize how much it hurt. I reached into the side drawer of the credenza and pulled out a small, worn sketchbook, my grandmother's gift from years ago, edges softened by time. "This," I said, placing it on the table between us, "is why I kept going. Grandma believed in me when no one else did. I want us to start over, with that same kind of belief in each other." Mom's tears finally fell. She nodded, pressing a hand to her chest. Dad reached for the sketchbook like it was something holy. I felt the power shift settle into something warmer, no longer a weapon but a choice. I wasn't here to punish. I was here to rewrite the rules. I stand on the back deck of my house as dusk settles like a soft lavender veil over the lake. The evening air smells faintly of pine and the faint, smoky sweetness of my neighbor's fireplace. My hair catches the breeze, and for the first time in years, I feel weightless. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm finally at peace with the imperfections. Inside, the low murmur of voices carries through the open sliding door. My parents are helping my brother wash the dishes, their laughter tentative but real. It's not the brittle, forced laughter of people pretending. It's lighter now, the kind that leaves room for hope. Last week, when I laid out my conditions, therapy sessions for all of us, an end to the quiet dismissals of my ambitions, a commitment to show up for one another, they blinked at me like startled deer. But they listened. And tonight, I heard my mother telling my brother that maybe he should look into the graduate program he's always wanted, that they'd support him this time. The simple words almost unraveled me. I brushed my fingertips over the silver locket around my neck, the same one Aunt Mary and pressed into my hand the night I left home. Years ago. You carry your own compass, she'd whispered. I didn't fully understand then. Tonight, I finally do. That compass wasn't just about finding my own way in the world. It was about holding my ground, even when love hurt. I stepped back inside, the warm glow of the dining room wrapping around me. My father glances up from the sink. You okay? He asks, his voice hesitant but sincere. I smile, a real smile, unguarded. Yeah, I say, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. There is no grand apology, no single moment where everything is fixed. But there is effort, messy, imperfect, and real. And that's enough. I catch my reflection in the darkened window. A woman who built her own life, who faced the hurt and refused to let it define her. I am not the girl who once stood in a half-packed bedroom, terrified of being small. I am the woman who chose her own home, her own happiness, her own voice. I press the locket to my heart and whisper, more to myself than anyone else. Home isn't where they put you. It's where you decide to stand.